The great Western author Louis L'Amour once said that as these pioneers were heading west, they would leave the forested areas of the Midwest, of the Indiana, Illinois areas. They would cross that Mississippi, and the skies would open up. You know, the great prairies and the great Rocky Mountains. The sky just gets bigger. And he said there was typically two types of men. The one type of men, when the sky started opening up, they started picking up their heads, seeing opportunity. They knew the struggles ahead, but they were willing to take it. They wanted it. They wanted to spread their roots, and this was a huge opportunity for them. Their heads came up, their steps quickened, they leaned into that harness, and they went for it. The second type of men, when they noticed how big the sky was getting, how big the land was getting, shriveled up. They felt small and inadequate, and they oftentimes turned around and went back because they couldn't handle it. They realized in these communities that were settled and convenient and comfortable that now they're leaving all that behind, and it's all depending on them. And when things got big and open, they didn't want it. They were weak. They turned around and went back. Which one of these men are you? Are you one that would have took on that responsibility, the smile on your face, willing to accept the challenge and head west? Or would you have tucked tail and ran back to the trees where the settlements are and the comfort is? Stick around to the end. I'll share a little side story, a true story of what one man had to do to his wife on the Oregon Trail when she wouldn't listen to him. But we're going to go through 8 points of what men used to be, what men should be like, versus what we are today. Before we get into it, I'd like to point out, men, that your wives, your girlfriends, or your future wives and girlfriends, women in general they are attracted and desire a masculine man. They want somebody who is capable, who protects them, who provides for them. Women do not feel safe. Whether they admit it or not, women nowadays will act tough, but deep down, they want to feel safe. Why do you think they like to be cuddled? It's because they feel safe in masculine arms. All the time I hear of 70-year-old women, well past their youth and beauty. They're old and no longer attractive to young men, 20-year-olds. But yet they're still scared that those 20-year-olds will take advantage of them. I find this funny, but I think that's just the state of women, is they're always fearing. They are the weaker vessel. They are the weaker person. That's why God designed them as our helpmeets, and He designed us to protect, provide for them. So many men today wearing their skinny jeans, and they see a spider and they scream like little girls, or they see a mouse and they scream like little girls. That's not a man. That's not a man at all. Don't be scared of spiders. Don't be scared of what goes boom in the night, right? You need to go check it out. That's not for your wife to do. That's not for your girlfriend to do. That's not for your daughter to do. You need to go find out what's going on, protect them. When I'm comparing the real men versus men today, I'm thinking 200, 300, 400 years ago men. So we'll get into the first one. Men were, and I kind of touched on this, men were the pinnacle of the family. The men built the shelter. They hunted for food. They made sure they were growing food. They provided. They protected when the coyotes came, when the Native Americans came, when whoever showed up, burglars, the boogeyman, they protected the family. They were the ones to grab the gun and protect. They were very capable. And the women, their wives and their daughters and their children, looked up to this man as a strong, capable man. Matter of fact, if he died, the women would need to most oftentimes remarry because they needed that man in their lives to do all the hard work, the wood splitting, the plowing, the hunting, and all that stuff. When you compare that to today's men, the women are the head of the household. They call the shots. They do the grocery shopping. The men go to work. They come home. They play video games. They watch TV. Not even the same. Not capable. Not physically capable. Complacent. And TV, movies, all that has conditioned us to be okay with that. The second difference is men then, like I've mentioned, were focused on protecting, providing for the family. They were, that was their main, that was their only focus. That's all they had time for, basically. Today's men are focused on retirement and riches and toys, etc. And oftentimes the teaching the kids and all that gets left behind because we're also focused on that baby boomer mindset of where, well, we need a retirement fund, we need a boat for the lake, we need some jet skis, and we need some snowmobiles for the winter, etc. Toys, leisure. Big difference. The third difference between men in the past versus today is a big one. It really defines what a man is. And that is they stood their ground. They were willing to die for their beliefs and their morals. They knew what was right and wrong, and they stood fast. Today, not so much. There's some, and you can call them men. But how many men put on that face diaper in 2020? How many men took that shot in the arm because their wives told them to? How many men didn't do any research and just did what they were told? Or how many men even knew it was wrong? Or knew it was weak and it was a load of crud? that the pandemic was a scam, and yet still went along with what they were told to do. That's the definition of a weak man. The fourth difference is back then, men bonded because they did things together. They had community. They bonded building something, or they bonded because they went to war, they fought, they went through struggles together. You know, when a barn burned down and all the men gathered together to throw water on the fire, there was a bonding effort that bound them together. When they built a house, when they all got together and had a house that they built, helped the neighbors build, there was a bonding there. They could, at the end of the day, they could step back and they could look at that house and they could see, look, we did this as a team working together. Today, it is hard to get men to come together to help a neighbor out, or to help somebody in need, or to build something just build something. It's just far too easier for men to sit at home, sleep in, stay on the couch, play some video games, watch TV. It takes a lot less effort to do that, and that's what most men end up doing, unfortunately. The fifth difference is men drove and influenced communities back then. Not the women, the men did. The women may have put on dances, etc., things like that, but it was the men getting together to rescue a child. It was the men getting together to build a neighbor's house. It was the men driving community, with the women coming in to support in whatever way they need to. Today, the women are driving community, not the men. The men are all too lazy. They don't want to put any effort in. They just go fishing, go hunting, focused on their toys. And the women are doing it. Wrangler Star once pointed out how men are when men are uncomfortable in female settings. Imagine women putting on a Bible study, or with a tea party Bible study, or just a tea party, or a gathering, or a knitting. Would you, as a man, feel comfortable in that setting, being there with your wife and just nothing but women? No, of course we aren't. Flip that around, and we go to, say, you're part of a biker gang in a bar setting. You're eating food, or you're just man things. You're out there hunting. You're doing a clay pigeon shoot. Just men things, right? You're chopping wood. Women don't feel uncomfortable in those settings. Women don't feel uncomfortable in a man stage setting, but men feel uncomfortable in a female setting. Churches nowadays are designed for women. Churches need to start being set up to teach men, and the women will come along with their husbands. The sixth difference, back in the day, men were more respectable to women. They didn't tolerate masculine traits in women. It was no good. They respected women mostly because women were more feminine, and they usually discouraged feminine traits in men. Versus today, where men are attracted and encourage lewd women. Women do what men want. So when men are watching porn, when men are liking all the girls in bikinis on the beach, when men are being pigs, they like the biker chick that's scantily clad, barely wearing any clothes. When women know that, they're going to do that. So we can blame the women, and it's their fault too, but it's us men who are encouraging it, whether we know it or not. We need to respect the feminine, and we need to encourage the feminine in our women. Now the world has just gone off the rails, and we know that. Should we encourage, maybe even demand that our women, that our wives and children dress more conservative? So many Christian women are still out there scantily clad. Where do we draw the lines? Let me know in the comments below. The seventh difference is men back then were physically capable, physically fit, versus the weak, overweight, soft, baby boomer men today. Back then, as a man, you didn't look to retirement. You didn't think, well, I just got to put in my time, and at 65 I don't have to work anymore. Nope. You were expected to, as long as you live, have to do physical labor. Chop wood, feed the horses, cut hay. You had to make sure that you had a warm house, that you had food. There was no 401k. There was no Medicare. You were expected to physically be able, and they were. How many 70-year-olds do you see out there splitting wood by hand today? And I think they were far healthier than the potato chip eating baby boomers are today. Sitting on their couches, yelling at the TV, out on their pontoons, drinking their Pepsis and their beer and their hot dogs. Stark contrast. You may say, well, they didn't live as long back then. Yeah, average life age was probably lower than it is today. However, I think they were far healthier when they did live in their 70s, 80s, and 90s. The reason the average is lower is because trauma-based injuries, they didn't survive. They didn't have the hospitals. When you cut an artery with a chainsaw, there wasn't an ambulance there 10 minutes later. So yes, we had the medical system, trauma-based medical system in a way is keeping us alive longer. However, the health of each individual, I am guessing, is far less healthy today than they were back then. Far less. These men of old times, they had stamina. This is the eighth one. They had stamina. They kept going no matter what. They dug their heels in and they kept going. They didn't need safe spaces. They didn't need a therapist. They didn't need. They kept going because they had to. Because people relied on them. Because they needed to. Which one are you? Are you a man of old? Hard? Capable? Strong? Or are you soft? Strong men make easy times. Easy times make weak men. Weak men make hard times. Hard times make strong men. Strong men make weak time, and so on. We are in a time now. We are weak men, and we need to, and we're headed into hard times, where it's going to take strong men. Are you one? Are you a strong man, or are you going to curl up in a corner and hopefully just wait it out? The plan with this channel for the moment is to go through all the details of what it looks like to be a man. None of this I was ever taught as a young man. We should be teaching these things to our young boys growing up, our 14, 15, 16-year-olds, but none of that is happening. These are things that should have been taught when I was a young man, that all of us should have been, but none of us were. So at 41, I'm starting to see what it means to be a man. I'm starting to figure things out. So if you guys want to come along for that journey, you want to make sure you subscribe for the future videos coming out, and maybe we can build a community here of men who are like-minded, and we can help each other grow together and become strong, because in the days to come, God is going to need warriors for his kingdom. And whether that be us or not, maybe it won't be us in our time, but we should be learning these things so that we can teach our sons, because most likely, because it could be in their times, and they'll need to know. They'll need to know how to stand fast and strong. So make sure you subscribe, hit that bell notifications. That way you get notified of future videos coming out from the Amish Potato. So this story, the pioneer story, is a story where there was a wagon train headed out to Oregon on the Oregon Trail. I don't know if they were in Wyoming or Idaho, wherever it was. They were well into the trip. And this man and wife, and apparently, I don't know how many kids they had, but they had a son, 9 years old or so. The wife got sick and tired of it. She got tired of the traveling, which was extremely hard. The dust, the lack of wood for fires, the food, the Indians, whatever it may have been, she was done. So one morning, when the wagon train hitched up and moved on, she took her son, little son, and she stayed behind. She refused to move. Her husband couldn't leave the wagon train, so he hitched up his wagons and his wagon went with the wagon trains. They traveled however many miles that day, 10, 15, whatever it was, made camp. And when they made camp, he jumped on his horse and he rode back to where his wife was, who still refused to follow. They're out in the middle of nowhere, the desert, wherever it may have been. She still refused to follow. She wanted to go back. But he bent her over his knees and he gave her a spanking. He gave his wife a spanking. Put her on the horse along with the kid and took him back to the wagon train. I don't know all the details. This man, she eventually kept on moving, but this man, and they made it to Oregon. Did this man, what was the conversations before they even started the trip? Did she not want to go and maybe he should have listened to her more? Was she willing to go and then just checked out? No matter what it was, he had to, if he would have just left her, she would have died. So he had to do something. Was the spanking the right thing? I don't know. Uh, but he had to do something because had she not, she had to go continue with the wagon train. Had she been left behind, she would have died. Had he stayed behind with her with the wagon and turned around and went back, they probably wouldn't have made it. It would have been, the chances would have been slim. So the safest and best thing, I guess, was to spank her and head for Oregon with the rest of the wagon train. I I find that funny. I don't know why, but I just can't imagine. I just can't imagine like literally disciplining my wife with a spanking. I don't think it would go down well. I'm CJ. This is the Amish Potato. I hope you enjoy this video. I hope you stick around. I would love to see a group of men rally and grow and become a group bonded together through struggles that we have in our lives. We'll see you next time.